Greetings, kindred. Welcome to this study of the book of Ezekiel, a study written by Pastor Lancelot Knight of the former King's Chapel. And today we're starting with chapter 21, verse 16. If you haven't heard the previous studies, I highly suggest you go back and start from the beginning. Otherwise, starting in the middle, some of the points are just they're not repeated. You might miss out on some of the understanding. So let's get started. The watchmen have been instructed by our Father in the second verse of this 21st chapter that when they teach His word in this final generation, to always drop a reminder to folks about what is going to happen in the holy city of Jerusalem. That is really easy to do because the word of Yahweh is replete with warnings that the king of Babylon is coming, and everyone, the good, the bad, and the ugly, are going to be here on the ground, and they are going to face his sword. So don't be deceived by the latter-day ministers and preachers who come in the name of Yeshua Christ as his representatives and deceive people into believing they are going to fly away and not go through the tribulation of Antichristos, or the instead of Christ. Paul even warned about being misled as to when we gather back to Yeshua Christ in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. It occurs after the king of Babylon has come and taken the whole world captive. True, those who have the seal of Yahweh in their foreheads, who have the gospel armor on, will not be harmed by Satan's sword or his fiery darts, but they will be here nonetheless to endure the fiery furnace of Nebuchadnezzar, who was merely a type of Antichrist, or instead of Christ, or perhaps a free one-night stay in the lion's den. So picture each individual, the good, the bad, and the ugly, with the point of the sword of the king of Babylon right up against his or her chest or gate, and it's sharp as razor and furbished, and it glitters like lightning. Our Father says, to who he holds it, wield that sword to the right and to the left, and let it cut whom it will. The question is, will it cut you? Ezekiel 21, verse 16. Go thee one way or other, either on the right hand or on the left, whithersoever thy face is set. Are your beliefs polluted with the traditions of the fathers? Have you checked them out, his word? Do you study his word and rightly divide it? You see, unless a person has the seal of Yahweh in his or her forehead, he is going to get awfully bloody, spiritually speaking, even to the point of the second death. Verse 17, I will also smite mine hands together, and I will cause my fury to rest. I, the Lord, have said it. Just like he told Ezekiel to clap his hands and get the people's attention, Yahweh will clap his hands and bring forth the sword of spiritual chastisement in the hands of the king of Babylon, the Antichrist, or the instead of Christ. The expression, I will cause my fury to rest, is the same one used in Ezekiel 5:13 and means it will come upon them. No ifs, ands, or but my preacher said we aren't going to be here. Ezekiel 5:13. Thus shall mine anger be accomplished, and I will cause my fury to rest upon them, and I will be comforted, and they shall know that I, Yahweh, have spoken it in my zeal, when I have accomplished my fury in them. So perhaps you have come to old proverbial fork in the road, Hey, everyone does when the sharp furbished sword is pointed against their gate. Decisions, decisions, live or die. Ezekiel 21, verse 18. The word of the Lord came unto me again, saying, 19, Also, thou son of man, appoint thee 2 ways, that the sword of the king of Babylon may come, both twain shall come forth out of one land, and choose thou a place, choose it at the head of the way to the city. So the king of Babylon is on his way to a fork in the road, and Ezekiel is instructed to set up a road sign at the head of the way to the city, which is before the Mount of Olives. Which way do you think the king of Babylon will choose to go? Hint, he actually has no choice, for he is Yahweh's servant, and Yahweh hath appointed his path. Verse 20, Appoint a way that the sword may come to Rabbath of the Ammonites, and to Judah and Jerusalem, the defenced. Ezekiel is told to appoint these 2 ways, one leading by the south, by Tadmor to Rabbath, meaning great, of the Ammonites, and the other by the north of Riblah to Judah and Jerusalem. Note, the Ammonites were descendants of Lot, and they became idolatrous worshippers of Moloch. You know, the religion where you pass your children through the fire? It was from these Ammonites that the great city of Jerusalem adopted many of the wicked practices and idols to worship. Verse 21, For the king of Babylon stood at the parting of the way, at the head of the 2 ways, to use divination. He made his arrows bright, he consulted with images, he looked in the liver. Hey, looky here, we've got divination, religion involved with the coming of the king of Babylon. Of course, he never consults Almighty Elohim or his word. He uses tarot cards and the 1-800 psychic hotlines. Sometimes he just writes Judah and Rabbath on separate arrows and mixes them up in a quill and reaches back and pulls one out, and bingo, the decision is made. And believe it or not, they had another, more messy divination where they killed an animal and inspected its liver. If it was healthy, decision was yea. If its liver was unhealthy, the decision was nay. For that meant the animal drank too much Babylonian brew. Just kidding. Ezekiel 21, verse 22. At his right hand was the divination for Jerusalem, to appoint captains, to open the mouth and the slaughter, to lift up the voice with shouting, to appoint battering rams against the gates, to cast them out, and to build a fort. Remember the model Ezekiel was instructed to build back in chapter 4 of this book, depicting these battering rams and the building of a fort against Jerusalem by the soon coming king of Babylon? You better watch out. You better not cry. You better not pout. I'm telling you why. Antichrist is coming to town. Not maybe, but you can count on it. And Christians aren't going to fly away when he comes either. Here is beginning of the account in chapter 4 to show the parallel with verse 22, which we just read. Ezekiel 4, verses 1 and 2. Thou also, son of man, take thee a tile, and lay it before thee, and portray upon the city, even Jerusalem, and lay siege against it, and build a fort against it, and cast a mount against it. Set the camp also against it, and set battering rams against it round about. Of course, if you also remember, the elders and religious leaders of the people were telling everyone that it isn't going to happen, that they are protected and safe within the walls of Jerusalem, and Yahweh isn't going to let the king of Babylon come upon them and have the victory? Well, there's nothing new under the sun, is there? Their children and their children's children today are polluted after their same manner and believe the religious leaders, Christian ministers of today, who tell them they are safe and are going to avoid confronting the king of Babylon, the Antichrist, or instead of Christ. It's a lie. The preachers today are lying to the people just as they did when the type of instead of Christ, the spurious Messiah, King Nebuchadnezzar, came upon the great city, just as it was foretold by Ezekiel and Jeremiah. And the same message and warning applies to this generation for whom it was acted out in type in history. Christians had better get the gospel armor on and get ready to take a stand, Ephesians 6. Otherwise, they will be defenseless and shall be taken captive and slaughtered spiritually by the king of Babylon, who will be the spurious Messiah posing as Yeshua. Ezekiel 21, verse 23. And it shall be unto them as a false divination in their sight, to them that have sworn oaths. But he will call to remembrance the iniquity that they may be taken. So the people believed it was not divination, that it was not going to happen, even those who should have known better. No matter, Nebuchadnezzar will remember the breaking of the covenant and oath of Zedekiah, and he will come marching upon Jerusalem. Why? Because he remembered? No, because it is decreed by Adonai Yahweh through his prophets and now written in his word for our generation. Verse 24. Therefore, thus saith Yahweh Elohim, because ye have made your iniquity to be remembered, in that your transgressions are discovered, so that in all your doings your sins do appear, because I say that ye are come to remembrance, ye shall be taken with the hand. Yahweh is no respecter of persons. We all get what we deserve. 25. And thou, profane, wicked prince of Israel, whose day is come, when iniquity shall have an end. Say goodbye to King Zedekiah. Let him serve as a type of one who breaks his oaths and covenants. Remember how all of his sons were killed before he had his eyes gouged out at Riblah and was carried to Babylon, where he died. Ezekiel 21, verse 26. Thus saith Yahweh Elohim, remove the diadem and take off the crown. This shall not be the same. Exalt him that is low, and abase him that is high. The crown, the royal diadem, was to be taken away, and so it was that Zedekiah would be the last king of Judah. Also, we read the same thing about the exalting of him that is low, etc., back in chapter 17, concerning the parable of the high branch, etc., and how the low tree would be exalted and the high tree brought down. Ezekiel 17, verse 24. And all the trees of the field shall know that I, the Lord, have brought down the high tree, have exalted the low tree, have dried up the green tree, and have made the dry tree to flourish. I, the Lord, have spoken and have done it. The high or haughty tree, Satan as the spurious Messiah, will be brought down at the return of the low, humble tree, Yeshua Christ, who will be exalted as the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and under whose authority all people shall dwell forevermore. We also talked briefly about the daughters of Zedekiah, who were not killed by King Nebuchadnezzar, and were taken along with the stone of Scone, known as Jacob's pillar, to the shores of Ireland, by Jeremiah, thus replanting the kinship line in the Isles of the West. In his booklet, Jacob's Pillar, E. Raymond Capp gives the details of this fascinating and easy-to-document history of how this stone was overturned from Ireland to Scotland and then to England. Overturn, overturn, overturn. The "it" in the next verse is the royal crown, the diadem. It is written that there would always be someone to sit upon the throne of David until Christ returns as king. I just want to add, this is a good place to make the comment that we should all know that Christ has not returned to this earth and sat on the throne of David as king, yet has he. Ezekiel 21, verse 27. I will overturn, overturn, overturn it, and it shall be no more until he comes, whose right it is, and I will give it him. If you do not know the history of this rock, which was Jacob's pillar, the rock carried in the wilderness and struck twice, then write to us for a copy of Jacob's Pillar by E. Raymond Capp. And you can find that book on Amazon. By the way, the rock was recently removed from under the coronation throne in Westminster Abbey by the English Prime Minister John Majors and taken to Edinburgh, Eden's Palace Castle. As the chair sits emptied of the stone of Scone, could it be that the last human coronation has taken place upon it, and the next king to be crowned upon the stone will be him whose right it is to be upon it for all eternity, the King of Kings? We shall soon see. Ezekiel 21, verse 28. And thou, son of man, prophesy and say, Thus saith Yahweh Elohim concerning the Ammonites, and concerning their reproach, even say thou, the sword is drawn, for the slaughter it is furbished to consume because of the glittering. Don't think for a moment that idolaters are exempt from facing the glittering, consuming sword just because the king of Babylon is headed first for Jerusalem. Verse 29. Whiles they see vanity unto thee, whiles they divine a lie unto thee, to bring thee upon the necks of them that are slain, of the wicked whose day is come, when their iniquity shall have an end. You can add their slain souls to the pile already in Jerusalem, for they also have been fed lies and seen empty visions. They are polluted indeed. Historical note. After the fall of Jerusalem, Ammon was destroyed for helping Ishmael in usurping the government of Judea against the will of the king of Babylon. Yahweh's word is always true and accurate, and its history has never been disproved by the skeptic. The next question is there anywhere a person can go to escape the sword of trial? The answer is no, there is not. Verse 30. Shall I cause it to return unto its sheath? I will judge thee in the place where thou wast created, in the land of thy nativity. Verse 31. And I will pour out mine indignation upon thee, I will blow against thee in the fire of my wrath, and deliver thee into the hand of brutish men and skillful to destroy. Get rid of those polluted garments and get suited up in the word of Yahweh. Otherwise, you'll just make the lake of fire burn bigger and brighter as your soul burns and crackles like a piece of dry wood until it is consumed away, gone forever and ever. Verse 32. Thou shalt be for fuel to the fire, thy blood shall be in the midst of the land. Thou shalt be no more remembered, for I, Yahweh, have spoken it. Just remember the last phrase in this verse, Yahweh has spoken it. Believe him, not man. This concludes our study of Ezekiel chapter 21. Next time we'll pick it up starting with chapter 22. I hope you're enjoying the study and learning about Yahweh's plans for his people in these end times. Okay, Yahweh bless. See you next time.